Commander Vyra Keth'alis watched the human prisoner through the containment field, her amber eyes narrowing with barely concealed contempt. 3 rotations ago, her strike cruiser had intercepted the crippled Earth vessel, drifting near the Terminus Nebula, and among the survivors, this one had killed 4 of her boarding soldiers before finally being subdued. "You understand why you're here," she said, her voice carrying the harmonic undertones of the Kaeleth species. The human, a male designated Sergeant Marcus Cole according to his identification tags, sat motionless on the cell's metal bench. His face bore the marks of the fight, a split lip bruising along his jaw, dried blood matted in his close-cropped hair. But his eyes, those unsettling brown eyes that held none of the luminescence her people possessed, remained fixed on her with an intensity she found oddly unnerving. "Your vessel violated sovereign Kaeleth space," Vyra continued. "Your crew resisted lawful detention, and you personally," she stepped closer to the shimmering barrier, "murdered my soldiers. Self-defense," Cole said. His voice was hoarse, but steady. "Your people boarded our ship with weapons hot. We were responding to a distress signal. There was no distress signal. Then, someone wanted us in your space." Cole's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Question is, was it you? Or someone who wanted us meeting like this?" Vyra's secondary hands twitched, an involuntary tell she immediately suppressed. The human had touched on something that had been gnawing at her since the engagement. The Terran ship's trajectory had been too precise, their arrival too convenient, the supposed navigation malfunction too coincidental. "You speak as if you have information I need," she said. "I speak as someone who's been set up before." Cole leaned forward, and despite the containment field between them, Vyra found herself tensing. "Your space, our ship, a fight that kills people on both sides. Who benefits?" Before she could respond, the deck shuddered beneath her feet. Alarms screamed through the corridor. "Commander!" Her second officer's voice crackled through the comlink embedded in her collar. "Unknown vessels emerging from subspace. 7. No, 12 contacts. They're not responding to hails." Vyra was already moving toward the cell's exit when the first impact slammed into the ship's hull. She caught herself against the doorframe as emergency lighting bathed the corridor in crimson. "Classification? Unknown design, Commander? They're static." "Then, they're firing on both our ships. The human vessel is taking hits." Through the observation port at the corridor's end, Vyra could see it. Sleek, obsidian shapes cutting through the void, weapons blazing with an energy signature her sensors couldn't identify. One of the attacking ships broke formation, accelerating toward her cruiser with clear intent. "Commander died." Cole's voice came from behind her, and she turned to find him standing at the containment field's edge. "I know you don't trust me, but I know those ships." "Impossible. Even our databases have no record, because they don't leave records. They don't leave survivors." His jaw tightened. "They're called the Hollow. They seed conflicts, wait for both sides to weaken, then harvest what's left. That distress signal, that was them. This whole thing was a trap, for both of us." Another impact. The lights flickered. Somewhere in the ship, something vital groaned and failed. Vyra stared at the human prisoner, calculating. Her tactical doctrine was clear: never trust an enemy, never show weakness, never compromise a position of strength. But strength meant nothing if they were all dead in the next 30 cycles. "What do you propose?" she asked, the words tasting like ash. Cole met her gaze without flinching. "Let me fight. Give me access to your auxiliary weapons systems. You need every gun you can get. You killed my soldiers, and your soldiers killed mine. Right now we've got a common enemy that wants us both dead." He pressed his palm against the containment field, and the energy crackled around his flesh. "My people have a saying, Commander. The enemy of my enemy is a conversation worth having. Let's have that conversation. The ship lurched again. On the tactical display now flickering to life on her wrist unit, Vyra watched 2 more enemy vessels complete their approach vectors. Her cruiser's shields were failing. The human ship had stopped transmitting entirely. She had perhaps 10 cycles to make a decision that violated everything she'd been taught. Vyra's hand moved to the containment controls. If you betray me, human, I will kill you myself. Fair enough, Cole said as the barrier dissolved. Now show me to your guns. The auxiliary weapons bay was a ruin of sparking conduits and shattered display screens when they arrived. 2 Kaeleth technicians lay motionless beneath a collapsed support beam, their luminescent blood pooling in the zero-gravity environment. Cole pushed off from the doorframe, navigating the debris with the practiced ease of someone who'd spent years in compromised vessels. Main targeting arrays gone, he reported, pulling himself toward the primary console. But the manual backup should still... He stopped, studying the alien interface with furrowed brows. I can't read your language, Commander. Vyra moved beside him, her 4 hands dancing across the controls with fluid precision. I'll handle the targeting solutions. You operate the firing mechanisms. She gestured to a secondary panel. Those controls are mechanical. Even you should be able to manage. Charming Dutch. Cole positioned himself at the station, his hands finding purchase on controls clearly not designed for human fingers. What am I shooting? Whatever I designate. Follow the indicator lights. And if your indicator lights point me at your surviving crew, Vyra's amber eyes flashed. Then you will have learned too late that you should have remained in your cell. Through the weapons bay's viewport, the battle unfolded in silent fury. The hollow ships moved with an eerie synchronicity, their formations shifting like a single predatory organism. Vyra's cruiser, the Ascendant Blade, was bleeding atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. Of her escort vessels, only 2 remained, and both were retreating toward the nebula's interference zone. Contact bearing 047, Vyra announced. Firing solution locked. Cole found the trigger mechanism, a pressure pad that required more force than was comfortable. He squeezed. The deck vibrated as energy lanced from the bay's turret. On the viewport display, a hollow ship's shields flickered but held. No effect, he said. Their shielding adapts to our weapon frequencies. Vyra's voice carried a frustration Cole recognized from countless losing engagements. Every shot we land, they compensate. We've exhausted 11 frequency variants. Cole watched the enemy formation, his mind working. During the siege of Proxima Station, he'd faced a similar problem, entrenched positions with adaptive defense networks. The solution had cost him half his squad, but they'd won. Stop trying to overpower the shields, he said. You're thinking like they want you to think. Explain. Their shields adapt to energy signatures, right? So stop giving them energy. Cole's hands moved over the console, searching. Do you have kinetic options? Mass drivers, railguns, even explosive warheads. Vyra stared at him. We abandoned projectile weapons 2 centuries ago. They're primitive. Mistoya. Primitive doesn't mean ineffective. Cole pulled himself toward a sealed compartment marked with what he assumed were warning symbols. What's in here? Hull repair drones? Automated units for heavy? Sufficiently. Cole was already working the compartment's manual release. Then we've got projectiles. High velocity, unguided, and broadcasting. Exactly 0 energy signature until they punch through those pretty adaptive shields. For a moment, Vyra said nothing. Among her people, such an approach would be considered beneath discussion, the tactical equivalent of throwing rocks. But watching another volley of precisely calibrated weapons fire splash uselessly against the enemy shields, she found her objections dying unspoken. The launch trajectory would need to be calculated manually, she said slowly. Without guidance systems, the margin for error is exactly what makes it unpredictable. Cole hauled a drone from the compartment, a dense ovoid of composite materials roughly the size of his torso. I need you to depressurize this bay on my mark and angle us to face that lead ship, the one directing the others. You intend to throw debris at a warship. I intend to throw debris at a warship really fast. He positioned the drone near the viewport. Your hull repair systems, do they have electromagnetic accelerators? For launching drones to hull breach sites? Vyra's secondary hands went still. She understood. The system was designed for a precise, controlled deployment, she said. Not as a weapon. First time for everything. The deck shuddered as another hollow strike found its mark. In the distance, one of the Kaeleth escort vessels broke apart, its reactor containment failing in a brief, terrible bloom of light. Commander Keth'alis. Her second officer's voice returned to the comm, strained. We've lost the Vigilant Honor. Shield generators at 40%. Sublight engines failing. Understood. Vyra's voice betrayed nothing. Maintain defensive pattern. I'm attempting an alternative approach. She moved to the drone launch controls, her fingers hesitating over the interface. What the human proposed went against everything she knew, everything her training had instilled. Projectile weapons were relics. Improvised tactics were the refuge of the desperate and the undisciplined. But they were desperate, and the human's eyes held something her own officer's eyes had lost, the belief that victory was still possible. The enemy of my enemy, she murmured. Is a conversation worth having, Cole finished. Ready when you are, Commander. Vyra activated the launch system. The bay began to depressurize. Through her tactical link, she adjusted the ship's attitude, bringing the improvised weapon to bear on the hollow command vessel. Launch velocity at maximum, she reported. I'm not certain of the mathematics. That's fine. Cole braced himself against the console as the last of the atmosphere vented. Neither are they. He triggered the launch. The drone shot from the bay like a bullet from a gun, accelerating through the void on a trajectory no computer would have calculated, no tactical doctrine would have predicted. The hollow ship's shields, calibrated for energy weapons, optimized for known Kaeleth attack patterns, never even flickered. The impact tore through the enemy vessel's forward section. Secondary explosions rippled through its hull. And for the first time since the ambush began, the hollow formation broke. Confirmed hit, Vyra breathed. Their command ship they're losing coordination. Cole was already loading another drone. Then let's not give them time to adapt. How many more of these do you have? The counterattack bought them time. But time was a currency, rapidly depleting. Cole had exhausted the drone reserves in the auxiliary bay, 7 improvised projectiles that had crippled 2 enemy vessels and forced the remaining hollow ships to adopt erratic defensive patterns. But now the Ascendant blade drifted powerless, its reactor barely maintaining life support, its weapons systems slag. Damage report. Vyra's voice echoed through the emergency command center, a cramped secondary bridge that smelled of burnt insulation and fear. Casualty count at 37%, her tactical officer reported. Main engineering is gone, Commander. Primary and secondary hulls have separated. We're operating on emergency power only. The remaining hollow vessels, holding position at extreme range. They appear to be regrouping. Cole studied the tactical display from his position near the hatch. The Kaeleth officers had stopped questioning his presence. Survival had a way of erasing political concerns. But he could feel their resentment, their shame at being reduced to relying on a human's primitive thinking. They're waiting, he said. Vyra turned. Explain. Their command ship is crippled, but not destroyed. They're a hive, right? Need coordination to function effectively. He tapped the display, highlighting the damaged vessel. Right now, they're probably trying to restore their network. Once they do, they'll finish us. Then we should strike now. Destroy the command ship while... With what? Cole gestured at the flickering systems around them. We're out of drones, out of power, almost out of air. Anything we throw at them now, they'll see coming. Then what do you suggest, human? The words came from Tactical Officer Keth'alis, Vyra's younger cousin, and the most vocal in his resentment. More of your primitive tricks. Perhaps we should throw our furniture at them next. Keth'alis, Vyra said quietly. No, Commander. I have watched this creature turn our weapons bay into a debris launcher, our repair systems into artillery. And now he tells us there is nothing left to try? Keth'alis' secondary hands clenched. If we are to die, let us die as Kaeleth. With dignity. Dignity doesn't stop plasma bolts, Cole said. I've seen plenty of dignified people die. They're still dead. Then, what would you have us do? Cole was silent for a long moment. On the display, the hollow ships continued their patient vigil, waiting for their coordination to restore, for their wounded command vessel to resume control of the swarm. There is one option, he said finally, but you're not going to like it. I have liked nothing about this day, Vyra replied. Speak. Cole pulled up the ship's structural diagram. Your primary and secondary hulls have separated. The secondary, where we are now, is basically a life support module. Limited maneuvering capability, no weapons, no shields. Yes, we are aware of our situation. But the primary hull still has the main reactor. It's in emergency shutdown, but the core is intact. Cole traced a line on the display. If someone could get to it, could manually override the shutdown, the resulting cascade would vaporize everything within 50,000 kilometers. Vyra's voice was flat. Including us. No, whoa. Because the secondary hull has just enough maneuvering power to get clear. If we time it right. You're proposing we detonate our own ship. I'm proposing we turn your own ship into the biggest projectile in this sector. Cole met her gaze. The Hollow are waiting near that command vessel, trying to restore their network. They're clustered. Predictable. One big boom, right in the middle of their formation, and there's nothing left for them to adapt to. Silence filled the command center. The Kaeleth officers exchanged glances, their luminescent eyes flickering with emotions Cole couldn't read. The reactor override requires manual activation, Vyra said slowly. Someone would have to remain aboard the primary hull. Yes, you would be asking one of my crew to sacrifice themselves. No. Cole took a breath. I'm volunteering. More silence. Then Keth'alis laughed, a harsh, disbelieving sound. The human wishes to play the hero. How predictable. I'm not playing anything. Cole's voice hardened. Your ship is dead because my ship led the Hollow here. Whether we were set up or not, that's the reality. Your people are dying because of a trap meant for mine. He looked at Vyra. Let me make it right. And what of your survival? Your escape? There are emergency pods on the primary hull. If I can get to one before the cascade, you won't. Vyra's words cut through his explanation. The cascade begins in the outer compartments and moves inward. The pod bay would be compromised within seconds of activation. You would be dead before you could launch. Cole nodded slowly. I know. The command center seemed to grow smaller, the recycled air thinner. Around them, the surviving Kaeleth crew members had stopped their work, listening. Watching. Why? Vyra asked. You owe us nothing. You owe me less than nothing. Maybe. Cole shrugged. But I've spent 20 years fighting for things I believed in. My family's gone. My ship's gone. Most of my crew's gone. He paused. Let me make this count for something. Vyra studied him for a long moment. In her culture, sacrifice was the highest honor, but sacrifice for strangers, for enemies, was unheard of. Kaeleth died for their own blood, their own oaths, their own honor. Never for outsiders. And yet, Sergeant Cole. She straightened, and her officers followed suit. I expected an easy victory when we captured you. I expected a primitive, a creature of violence without purpose or a thought. Her voice softened. I was wrong. Happens to the best of us. You will not make this journey alone. She turned to her crew. I require one volunteer to assist the human in reaching the reactor core. We will need someone who knows the override sequences. Commander, Keth'alis stepped forward, then stopped. His expression shifted, pride warring with something else. I will go, cousin. You said yourself, Commander, we should die with dignity. He looked at Cole. Perhaps dignity means different things than I understood. Vyra closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, her decision was made. Prepare the secondary hull for separation. Tactical, begin plotting an escape trajectory. She moved toward Cole. You have perhaps 20 cycles to reach the reactor core. The hull separation will be violent. Internal communications will likely fail. Understood. And Sergeant Cole? She extended her upper right hand, a gesture he recognized from his briefings as one of profound respect among her people. Die Welt de l'homme. Cole took her hand. I planned to. The primary hull was a tomb. Emergency lighting painted the corridors in alternating bands of shadow and crimson. Debris floated in the zero-gravity environment. Personal effects, equipment, the occasional body. Cole moved through the wreckage with Keth'alis close behind, both of them using magnetic boots to maintain contact with the deck. Reactor access is 2 junctions ahead, Keth'alis said, his voice tight in Cole's borrowed comm unit. The path should be clear. Should be. The structural damage is extensive. I cannot guarantee. A section of ceiling collapsed ahead of them, filling the corridor with spinning fragments of metal. Cole threw himself against the wall, feeling something sharp glance off his shoulder. Pain flared, but he pushed through it. Are you injured? Keth'alis asked. I'll live long enough. Cole resumed moving. Come on. They found the reactor access hatch sealed. Emergency protocols had locked it when the primary hull lost atmosphere. Keth'alis' hands moved over the manual release, entering codes Cole couldn't read. The override sequence requires 2 simultaneous inputs, the Kaeleth explained. One at the primary control panel, one at the secondary station across the chamber. I will take the secondary. Keth'alis. Do not. The young officer's voice was sharp. I have made my peace with this, human. Do not diminish it with sentiment. Cole nodded slowly. Understood. The hatch opened, revealing the reactor chamber. At its center, the containment vessel pulsed with a sickly orange light, the reactor's death throes held in check by failing safety systems. 2 control stations flanked the chamber, separated by a walkway that spanned the containment pit. On my count, Keth'alis said, moving toward the far station. We will have approximately 90 seconds between override initiation and cascade. That is your window to reach the emergency pods. You said the pods would be compromised. I said the cascade would likely kill you before you could launch. Keth'alis' eyes met his across the chamber. But your people are known for their stubbornness. Perhaps you will surprise me. Cole took his position at the primary station. The controls were complex, but Keth'alis walked him through the sequence, his voice steady despite everything. Initiating override in 3, 2, 1 Dora. They moved simultaneously. The reactor's pulse shifted from orange to white, and the chamber began to vibrate. Override accepted, Keth'alis reported. Cascade, in 90 seconds. Go, human. Go now. Cole didn't argue. He ran. The corridors blurred past him. Somewhere behind him, the reactor's vibration became a roar. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut in his path, and he diverted, rerouted, improvised. 50 seconds. 40. Ah. The hull groaned around him as the cascade began its inexorable spread. He found the pod bay through a maintenance hatch he'd spotted on the way in. Inside, 3 escape pods waited in their launch cradles. Cole threw himself into the nearest one, his hands finding the manual launch controls. 20 seconds. The pod's systems were minimal. No shields, no weapons, barely enough thrust to clear the blast radius. He punched the launch sequence. 10 seconds. The cradle released. The pod shot from the dying ship like a seed from a dying flower. Through the tiny viewport, Cole watched the primary hull recede, and then vanish in a bloom of light so intense it burned afterimages into his vision. The shockwave caught the pod, spinning it wildly. Cole lost all sense of direction, all sense of time. He heard metal screaming, felt the hull buckling around him. Something struck his head, and darkness rushed in. When consciousness returned, it came with pain. Cole opened his eyes to find himself still in the pod, still alive. Through the cracked viewport, he could see the remains of the hollow formation. Scattered debris, burning hulks, the shattered remnants of ships that had clustered too close together. Human vessel. A voice crackled through the pod's failing communications array. Human vessel, respond. This is Sergeant Cole. His voice came out as a croak. I'm here, Sergeant Cole. This is Commander Keth'alis. We have your position. Rescue shuttle is en route. He laughed. It hurt. Thought the pods would be compromised. Apparently you are as stubborn as my cousin believed. Catherine died well. There was something in her voice. Grief, yes, but also something else. Pride, perhaps. As did you, Sergeant. As did you. What? The rescue shuttle arrived within minutes. Cole barely registered the hands that pulled him from the wreckage. The medical equipment pressed against his skin. The faces, alien faces, looking down at him with expressions he was only beginning to understand. Vyra was waiting when they brought him to the secondary hull's medical bay. Her officers flanked her, but they weren't guarding her. They were honoring her. The hollow are destroyed? Cole asked, the words slurred. All vessels eliminated. Your sacrifice was effective. She stepped closer to the medical platform. You should have died, Sergeant. The mathematics were absolute. I told you before. He managed a weak smile. Primitive doesn't mean ineffective. Sometimes it just means stubborn. Around them, the Kaeleth crew watched. Cole could see it in their eyes. The shift, the recalibration. They had learned something about humans today. Something their databases and threat assessments had never captured. When you have recovered, Vyra said, we will return you to your people. I will personally ensure that your homeworld knows what you have done. And the war? The conflict between our species? There will be conversations. Her lips curved, the first hint of warmth he'd seen from her. It seems humans are good at those. She extended her hand again. The Kaeleth Dominion owes you a debt, Sergeant Marcus Cole. We do not forget our debts. Cole took her hand. Just doing my job, Commander. No what? Her grip tightened. You were doing something far more important. You were being human. Outside the viewport, the Terminus Nebula glowed with the light of distant stars. Somewhere in that vast darkness, the wreckage of the Hollow Fleet drifted, a monument to what happened when an enemy underestimated the stubborn, primitive, impossible creatures called humanity. The war wasn't over. It might never truly be over. But today, in this small corner of the galaxy, something had changed. A bridge had been built in blood and sacrifice, and the willingness to die for strangers. And that, Cole thought as exhaustion finally claimed him, was something worth fighting for.